Hey YouTube, Awesome Writer here with a new ranking video. This time I'm going to be ranking something Ben 10 related. You know, I haven't gotten to do Ben 10 videos in a long time because there hasn't been any new merch or stuff to cover, but I still get a fair amount of engagement on my Ben 10 videos. And, you know, I've been doing more ranking videos recently, and I thought it would be fun to do a Ben 10 one because I haven't done it in a while. So today I'm going to be ranking all of the Ben 10 series, meaning the main animated series from worst to best, or at least in my opinion, this is not a, like, I ran an algorithm, did a poll, this is the right answer, this is just my personal opinion and thoughts, you know, and I'm hoping to maybe incorporate some more Ben 10 rankings into my videos next year and maybe some topic videos because I do kind of miss talking about it, and it seems like it'd be kind of fun. So let me know if you want to see more. I did do a top 10 aliens, I believe, years ago, and I might update that if this video does well. But without further ado, let's get started. So coming in at the bottom, probably at surprise to no one, is the Ben 10 reboot series. And I hate that this is here just because even though it is my least favorite and I have a lot of criticisms of it, I think it's just an easy target. It's one of those like groupthink fan opinions of just hate, and it's just really annoying, to be honest with you. But honestly, like, this series just isn't for me. I do have some respect for a lot of the stuff it did. I was definitely disappointed to see the series dial back to a more simplistic approach of the mostly just like 10, 11 episode, easily digestible stories for younger kids. I know that's always been a kid show, but it was nice to see the series really evolve into this really cool, well thought out universe and multi-series story that felt almost like a DC animated project that lots of kids of all ages were enjoying. So it sucked to dial it back to this. There's like the common criticism of like, oh, you know, this is like the kids' TV of today. It's not as good as back in our day, but I'm sure there's going to be multiple generations that tout this as their childhood and that it was so great because it's all about perspective. But needless to say, the 11 episode, more easily digestible format wasn't for me. It could sometimes be kind of fun to visit because it gave you a little bit of those vibes of the original series, but for the most part it just wasn't my thing in that regard in terms of the main thing it was, which was those little mini-stodes. And I also felt it to be one of the weakest of those types of shows I've seen. I don't watch a ton of those nowadays, but over the years I have checked out a few, and as much as Teen Titans Go is also a punching bag for groupthink, that show can be entertaining as hell to pop on for 1 or 2 episodes in the 11 minutes. And these felt, quite honestly, in terms of just like the filler ones, to be a lot more bland. With that being said, to end on some positive notes, like I said, sometimes it was nice to have those old classic summer vacation vibes for the series. I really appreciated the inclusion of like various aliens and villains and characters and bits of lore from all across the other 4 series kind of brought into the 10-year-old Ben era in similar and different ways. I thought that was fun. Even though they were all mostly done for a new gimmick of toys every year, I thought it was fun to explore different types of power-ups and designs like the Omni-Enhanced and the Armored. And I really loved stuff like they did with Kevin. I thought that was a really cool idea of having him be like alternate versions or like negative versions of the aliens rather than an amalgam. So I thought I had a lot of fun creative ideas, and when it did plot episodes, they were overall solid, but it's just not my cup of tea. Coming up next, second to last, and this is, we're entering the territory where now I do really legitimately just like all the main 4 series. Definitely have my favorites and least favorite, but this isn't second least favorite in the terms of I think it's bad. And I had struggled where to place it, but it's just the one that I had the most mixed feelings on, which is Alien Force, which I don't know if that's a hot take. I don't have my finger on the pulse of the Ben 10 fandom of what's considered to be like the correct opinion or like the hot takes. But the thing is, I love Alien Force a lot. I have a lot of fondness for it. There was a huge amount of nostalgia for like when like the previews for it were coming out. Like I remember the individual Alien previews, like Ben 10, a different hero for every occasion, Swamp Fire, and like it was really hype. Like having the sequel series, Time Jump, a new 10 aliens, you know, the reason it's a little bit lower is for 2 primary reasons. One is more so about the second half, I feel is rather mixed, whereas the first half with the main arc with like Grandpa Max is missing and stuff like that was much more focused, whereas the second half felt a little bit more aimless. Like you had Vilgax showing up, you had some plot points here and there, but it felt like they just kind of meandered along until the finale, and it just felt largely unfocused. And it also felt like they course-corrected too hardcore with Ben, which is a problem that persists with Ultimate Alien a little bit, where like the first half Ben in this series was a little bit boring and dull compared to his more cocky, fun personality in the original series, which I think was meant to show that he matured. But then I think that they thought, okay, we made him a little bit too boring, and then they made him more douchey in the second half, and it just didn't come across correctly. I think they course corrected too soon. I know part of the point was that he got cocky from winning and he was supposed to mess up with the Omnitrix and learn a lesson, but the problem was then he goes back acting the same in Ultimate Alien, so I wasn't a fan of that. And also, even though I really liked the first half and a lot of the direction of this, the first half definitely felt weird, where it definitely felt like a creative reboot where they were realigning things to their own mythology, and it felt this like weird distance from the original series and mythology, which was just really strange to me. With that being said, I really do like it. I love all the new alien designs. You know, even though I thought it was weird at first bringing Kevin to the main cast, he wound up being one of my favorite characters. I love their dynamic. I love the mystery and build up of the hybrid arc. You know, I did really like the finale and what was done with there. I think there was a lot of cool mythology and stuff introduced, and I liked that it started to feel more like honestly like, you know, the DC animated show like I talked about. It was kind of neat to see the brand being taken so seriously. Coming up next after that is Ultimate Alien. Now, again, I struggled with the placement of these because in a lot of ways they're very similar in terms of the way I think about them, where I enjoyed the first half more and I felt the second half was a little bit more mixed. But I put this one above for one particular reason. But in terms of the stuff I didn't like is, again, I think they course-corrected Ben a little too much. Like I said, they made him cocky, I think, for the point of him learning his lesson at the end of Alien Force. But then he immediately was acting the same here, especially with like the fame aspect and stuff like that. And I felt like the second half also was very mixed. If I'm being honest, I wasn't too into the storyline about the worshipping of the weird Dagon creature. Even though there was some interesting stuff and it was kind of cool the way they explained why the Forever Knights were different with different factions, I found it to be a little bit confusing. I felt some of the mythos and story in that second half were a little bit strange and mixed. It didn't feel as much like they were treading water like the second half of Alien Force, but it definitely just felt very strangely paced compared to the first half. Meanwhile, the stuff I liked about it, though, is I really liked the first half. I guess some people didn't like Agregor as a villain, but I thought he was really cool. I thought learning more about Kevin's backstory at the time and tying it to the main villain and tying it to the set of new non-Ultimate aliens that were introduced was really cool. And the reason it ended up edging out Alien Force is because I love the Kevin story in this. It's one of my favorite stories in all of Ben 10. I think having him go evil again had so much more impact, and it kind of brought everything full circle, where I had mixed feelings about bringing Kevin on as a main character, won me over, and then him going evil again briefly really just made the story more impactful because now he was so much more of a friend and brother to Ben and everybody else, although not so much a brother to Gwen, but you know what I mean. And I thought that was really well done, and I personally really liked the mythology and explanation about his species basically going crazy if they absorbed organic or energy material and stuff like that. I thought it retroactively made a lot of sense. Unfortunately, they retcon it in a really weird way in Omniverse, but that was the reason it edged out for that. And I also did appreciate them including elements like Ben becoming famous and well-known, which lined up a little bit more with a version of the future we saw in Ben 10,000, even though I know that was just a possible future. Now for the runner-up is Omniverse. I have a lot of love for this series. You know, there is some mixed stuff. The series, you know, had a lot going on, you know, set up in these 10-episode arcs, and there was multiple different arcs, and not everything always worked. You know, I had some mixed feelings about some things. Some arcs were more mixed than others. Some of the decisions made I was a little bit annoyed at. Like I said, the Kevin thing really bothered me. I remember back in the day I used to follow like the Derek Wyatt Q&As, and it always bothered me that it seemed like some of the decisions in the show came from his very personal taste. Like, he didn't like what was done with Kevin, and it was very weirdly retconned, and looking back on it, it was a very comic booky retcon in terms of how if you go watch a video or read a wiki article on a comic book character, you'll see like 4, 5, 7, 10, 15 retcons like this where they change the story's backstory or the character's backstory back and forth, and I felt that stuff like that to be weirdly unnecessary. You know, him not having Agregor in there because he didn't like him, same thing with Jet Ray. But with that being said, I have a lot of love for this series. I think that it was kind of the ultimate culmination of everything we had been through at the moment. Once you grew on the art style, kind of like with animated, I think it worked. I think it was bursting with a lot of creativity in terms of new characters and aliens. I loved how many new aliens we got to see. There were some really cool ones like Feedback. I think that was another undercooked element, though, was the Ben 10 flashbacks. I felt that was done because of the popularity of Kid Ben, and then they never capitalized on it. I would have loved to have seen the whole series kind of almost been like Arrow, where every year just showed you a year in young Ben's life leading up to Alien Force. But there was some cool stuff there. Like, I loved Feedback feeling like a classic of Alien. I liked that we got to see some aliens that were more like just run-of-the-mill aliens, not so combat related, delving into the multiverse, seeing all these different cool versions of Ben, and I appreciated that this series seemed to have a little bit more reverence for some of the stuff set up in the original series in regards to mythos. Even though I love Alien Force and Ultimate Alien and all the stuff they added, it felt like they were like weirdly course correcting and changing things about the way the mythology and world felt, whereas this one felt it was more aligning it, being like, no, there's magic, it's not just weird alien energy stuff and stuff like that, and it didn't feel like it was trying to retcon, well, except for Kevin, but it felt like they were bringing the best of all the worlds together, where they were trying to, steer it a little bit more towards Man of Action's original vision that we saw in the original series in Ben 10,000, but incorporating all the cool stuff that had been introduced along the way in Alien Force Ultimate Alien, as well as their own series. It was certainly a really fun show to watch, as there was so many different arcs and characters and aliens introduced, and it's a shame we haven't gotten to see this world continue yet. Number one for me, and I know this is a basic opinion because I'm usually not a nothing beats the original guy, but is the original series. Even though I think the following 3 series have a lot more serialization and storytelling to follow, this is always the most fun one for me to rewatch. It's just a perfect mix of kind of more just episodic summer cartoon fun that brings you a nostalgic feeling, and also some really interesting superhero action and mythology, and there's just something special about the feel of this series. It has both the feel of like this almost throwback superhero feel with the music. Like, I remember I love the theme music that plays when he transforms. It had this epic, heroic, almost classic comic booky feel, but also this very sci-fi alien 50s vibe with the music, and it just really laid down the groundwork of so much what I love about the unique world with the plumbers and the aliens and the Omnitrix, and I loved the vision for what that could look like in Ben 10,000. And again, I acknowledge like Omniverse, Ultimate Alien, all that stuff has more serialized, deeper stories than this, but this is just the most fond one to me and the most fun to rewatch. But let me know, guys, in the comments what your guys' rankings are. Like I said, this is all personal opinion, it's not the right opinion or anything, and let me know if you want to see more Ben 10 ranking videos in the future, heading into next year, maybe aliens, villains, characters, Bens, because there's a bunch of different multiverse Bens. But let me know if it does well enough. I would love to keep doing these videos because they're a lot of fun to make. But that's about it for this one, guys. Until next time, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps and ring that bell so you get notifications for my videos. The Awesome Writer, signing out.